Are targeted killings legal under post-Cold War international humanitarian law? Imagine a world where nations can decide who lives or dies without a court trial. That's the debate surrounding targeted killings in recent years. Let's explore whether these actions fit within the rules of international law after the Cold War. Targeted killings involve intentionally using lethal force against specific individuals outside their custody. Usually, these are suspected terrorists or combatants. The key question is whether such killings are lawful under international humanitarian law, which governs armed conflicts. International humanitarian law applies during all types of conflicts, whether between states or involving non-state armed groups. It sets rules to protect civilians and limit violence. Only those directly participating in hostilities can be targeted. Civilians are protected unless they take part in fighting at that moment. When it comes to targeted killings, the principles of distinction, proportionality, and necessity are critical. Distinction means only combatants or those directly involved in fighting can be targeted. Proportionality says the harm caused must not be excessive compared to the military advantage. Necessity requires that lethal force is the last option to achieve a legitimate military goal. In international armed conflicts, suspected terrorists are often not considered lawful combatants. They are protected civilians unless they are actively fighting. In non-international conflicts, like those involving terrorist groups across borders, the legal situation is more complicated. Here, both international humanitarian law and international human rights law come into play. International human rights law always applies and protects the right to life. It restricts lethal force outside armed conflict to situations where there is an imminent threat and no other options. This means that outside active hostilities, killing someone without a trial could violate human rights protections. Since the Cold War, the rise of transnational terrorism has led to more use of targeted killings, especially through drone strikes. The legality of these strikes is hotly debated. Some argue they are lawful acts of war if targeting combatants in an armed conflict. Others see them as extrajudicial killings that violate human rights law when done outside of active fighting or without due process. Legal assessments, like those from the Israeli Supreme Court, focus on case-by-case analysis. They look at whether the target was a legitimate military objective, whether the attack was proportionate, and if precautions were taken to minimize civilian harm. The broader goal is to balance security needs with civilian protection. In practice, post-Cold War targeted killings challenge traditional rules. Many happen from active battlefields or in countries not involved in the conflict. This has sparked debates about how to interpret and apply international law in these new forms of warfare. To sum up, targeted killings can be lawful under international humanitarian law if they happen during an armed conflict, target legitimate combatants, and follow the principles of distinction, proportionality, and necessity. Outside of conflict zones, or if these rules are not followed, such killings risk violating international human rights law and protections for civilians.